Prime Minister has said most likely in the autumn and in the second half of the year. So that's pretty clear, I think, from him.
It's literally as clear as mud to any voters watching. When are you going to announce that there is a chance for everybody to vote for their local MP and their government? Shall we talk to Richard Holden, who is chairman of the Conservative Party? I'd like to say a very good morning. It isn't really, is it?
Well, good morning to you both. It's obviously a tough night for a lot of Conservative councillors and council candidates up and down the country I've been campaigning with over the last few weeks and months. I think we're about a third through the council count so far, slightly lower through the PCC counts, and then obviously got some of those mayoral elections to come. So there is a lot of news still to come over the next few days, I think, with those counts coming through. But it's quite clearly for many of my colleagues in local government been a really tough night. Looking
like losing half the seats you're defending. Were people voting on your failure in local councils or the failure of your Prime Minister?
Well, I think there's obviously people will vote on their individual issues in different areas, and it's not up for me to look into the minds of individual voters. But obviously local government elections usually have a lower turnout than a general election. People aren't choosing the new government of the country, but there's no doubt it's been a tough night for my party.
Can I ask you about your position, Mr Holden? Because you've now, since you became the chairman, you've now lost 3 Tory MPs in by-elections, in Wellingborough, in Kingswood and now in Blackpool. Your predecessor, Oliver Dowden, lost 3 by-elections in Shropshire, in Tiverton and Honiton and Wakefield. And when he lost a third, he said, somebody must take responsibility. And I've concluded that in these circumstances, it would not be right for me to remain in office. He decided after 3 by-election defeats, he should resign and take responsibility. I wondered, is that in your mind to follow his lead this morning?
Look, I obviously feel very responsible for the entirety of our Conservative family up and down the country. What I would say is that, I serve at the pleasure of the Prime Minister, obviously. But I think the key thing...
Oliver Dowden didn't resign because the Prime Minister told him to. He resigned because he said somebody should take responsibility. Are you going to take responsibility?
I think you know, Ed, very well, being the political hack that you are, that Oliver Dowden, I think at the time, resigned for a variety of different reasons. What I would say is that these elections are also going to be a big test for the Labour Party, big test for Keir Starmer. We've only got a third of the way through the council results. We've got a lot of the mayoral results to go as well. We'll see what happens in places like Teesside, like the West Midlands, where, in Teesside, Labour need to win every seat there in a general election to become just the largest party, never mind a majority in government. So we'll just have to see what happens over the coming days.
The trouble is that you say we just have to wait and see what else happens. The picture is looking terribly dismal for the Conservatives. You've already been asked if you'll take responsibility. The person at the top is ultimately the person who takes responsibility. Can Rishi Sunak really, on the basis of how you performed yesterday, lead the Conservative Party into the general election? And when is that general election going to be? How much longer can you keep people hanging on?
Well, as the Prime Minister's already said, answer to your second question first, Susanna, the general election is going to be in the second half of the year, as the Prime Minister has already made clear.
So no chance of an imminent or summer general election? You're totally ruling that out this morning?
The Prime Minister has made clear that the general election will be in the second half of the year. That's what everybody's expecting to happen. I think more broadly...
Sorry, Richard, the second part of this year could be July.
Well, the Prime Minister has said most likely in the autumn and in the second half of the year. So that's pretty clear, I think, from him.
It's literally as clear as mud to any voters watching. When are you going to announce that there is a chance for everybody to vote for their local MP and their government?
Well, the Prime Minister has literally said, Suzanne, in the second half of the year, most likely in the autumn.
So half of the year. OK, right.
I mean, that's a pretty reasonable time frame, but it's very clear what he's said. And I'd say, we've got some big legislation go through recently. I want to see more action on things like illegal immigration. That's why we've got the schemes like the Rwanda scheme, which are hopefully starting within the next 9 to 11 weeks as flights taking off. That's incredibly important. People are starting to see tax cuts for people of working age. We've seen that 2% off national insurance.
Can I just point out, on On the Rwanda policy, you passed the bill. The whole point was to stop the boats. This week, on Wednesday, we had the highest number of channel crossings this year. It's not working, is it?
Yeah, so the entire thing is when those flights are off, that will be a key deterrent for people wanting to cross the channel. We have now a very clear difference of policy between the Conservative Party and the Labour policy. Labour say they'll still be looking at granting amnesty potentially for those coming illegally to the UK. The Conservative Party has a very different position to that, saying people who come here illegally should not be able to stay here. And that's why that Rwanda deterrent, which Labour voted against over 130 times, is just so important.
But on the basis of this, on this deterrence, Mr Holden, when the bill became law 2 weeks ago, the Prime Minister did a press conference in which he said, this stops now. Stopping the boats starts now. This stops. The deterrent's in place. And since that day, in the last 2 weeks, over 2,000 people have come over on small boats to the UK, which is far more than will be sent to Rwanda in not just 1, but 2, 3, 4, 5 years. I mean, this deterrent's not working already.
Well, the deterrent will be really there when the flights take off. And we've also seen, Ed, the Irish government obviously raising the issue of people from the UK fearing deportation to Rwanda moving there as well. And that's quite a clear move from many of those people, fearing that the Rwanda scheme is going to work. And that's exactly what we want to see happen.
There must be a small part of you which thinks Oliver Dowden did the right thing.
Sorry, I mean, Oliver Dowden's the Deputy Prime Minister, serving in the government alongside me. I think he's doing a cracking job in delivering on our policies for the future of the country.
We have to leave it there, I'm afraid. Chairman of the Conservative Party, Richard Holden, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you very much.